My name is Cheryl Lee, and I'm pleased to be welcoming you all here. So awesome to see so many people signing in. We will give you some time here to just settle in, grab a coffee or a glass of wine or tea and water. I know it's mighty chilly in Ontario tonight. And for those of you who are just getting on, we want you to just know that this is being recorded, and we will have opportunities throughout the session to answer questions. There should be a bar either at the top or the bottom of your screen with the Q&A, and you can put in any kind of question you have or thought you want to share with Jody and I there. I see a couple of you have commented in the chat box, so you found that, and welcome Catherine and Jackie. Great to see each of you here with us tonight. We would love to just invite you to, in the chat box, let us know where you live, where in Ontario is home, and are you currently involved in hosting, or are you just giving it your thought at this point? It's wonderful to get a feeling of the mix of folks that are here with us tonight. So from Jody and I at Is Mli Homestay, we say thank you. Great to see someone here from Brockville. Yay, Emily. We need more Brockvillians, if that's such a word, to come on board to host our Japanese students. I think we still need 3 more families to take students in Brockville. And London, great to see folks in London and Ottawa. Jocelyn, welcome. It's awesome to see everybody joining, and Lindsay and Cornwall. Cornwall, we also need folks there. Donna, I am grateful to see you here joining in. So yeah, it's awesome to see folks all involved, and I am going to make you a co-host. Let me just do that right now, so that we don't, in case I disappear, Jody, that you're there as well with me. Can you see it there now?
No, I can't see my camera, but that's okay. Can you see my camera?
Yeah, I do. You look beautiful.
Okay. Oh, great.
You don't look cold either. I don't know if you have your, I
have 3 shirts on, I think, and a blanket. And
yeah, it's a chilly night.
It is.
I came upon this most adorable set of photos this morning as I was going for a walk with my dog, of people who have gone swimming in lakes in Ontario and have come up for air and put their hair like out, or even in hot tubs, and all these goofy, crazy frozen hairdos. And I was like, now how fun is that? I like that. Anyway, it's fun to see people signing up here, and I'm glad that we have a number of folks on. I wonder if we should do the poll while we're just waiting for people to get going. What do you think? We have about probably 4 minutes. I'll put it up if you want. And folks, when you see it come on your screen, that you should see an option to answer some really simple questions. There's 3 questions. It helps us when we're talking to you to know a little bit more about each other, and we'll share it with everyone so you can all see the results. But the first question is, have you hosted an international student before? Yes or no? And have you hosted an international Japanese student before? Yes or no? And thirdly, are you hosting an international student arriving the end of January? So this intake.
Choice 1 is yes. I forgot to put yes or no on that one.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well.
No, you don't have to say sorry.
We're good. So those will be great. I see lots of you participating, and as people come on board, they'll add to our story, and it just helps Jody and I, as we're talking through this presentation, to know how many of you have experience with hosting, or are going to maybe give this a first go, or still on the fence of whether now is the right time to step in to be a host, right?
Someone asked a question, and we can talk about this later but they asked what the age are of the students. And
Yeah, most of these kids are 15 or 16 years old. There's a few outliers that are 14 or 17, but the vast majority of students come in kind of the equivalent of their grade 10 or 11 year. There are a few of our students arriving this February who are a little older than normal because they've been stuck waiting to be allowed either by their parents or the processes in their country, or even our study permit process to be permitted to come to Canada at this time because of COVID. So they've been kind of backlogging a little bit. So yeah, so there might be a few 17-year-olds, but normally they're primarily 15 and 16 years old. So true minors, true teenagers. And it's great to see this many people have signed up. For those of you who've just joined, I'm Cheryl Lee, and I'm the COO for CISS and MLI. And I'm really, really pleased to be seeing so many of you able to join us on your very chilly Ontario night. And I'm actually in BC. That's why I'm giggling about how cold it is there, because I think we had all the cold weather through the holidays, through the school break. And now it's like being in a rain forest again. It's totally pouring rain. And it looks like it's 7 o'clock at night in BC here right now because it's so dark.
I heard it was raining in Whistler.
Yeah, just it's gotten so
Terrible.
warm. And there's water just literally flowing down my street because all the snow that we had is just literally melting overnight. It's crazy.
Well, it's supposed to go up to 3 degrees here tomorrow.
Wow.
And then freeze and then be cold again on the weekend.
And that's a Barrie.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy on our body, when it goes from hot to cold. It's confusing for kids too. What do I wear when I go outside?
Oh, my daughter never wants to wear a hat or a coat or socks. I basically have to bribe her. We went for a walk today in the frigid air just to get some fresh air, and my husband said we have to start making her wear a hat.
Yeah.
She just doesn't want to. I said, your job is the hat, mine's the coat.
Yeah. Well, I can remember as a kid, I grew up in a town called Squamish, which is halfway between Vancouver and Whistler, and we would have to walk a little ways, not barefoot uphill, but just walk a little ways to get to the bus stop. And as soon as I got there, I would take off my toque, I'd take off my mitts because it wasn't cool. It was cold, but it wasn't cool. I totally get
and
it.
Someone asked, when would the earliest hosting period?
Yeah, so we have students arriving in like 12 days. So it's coming very soon. And some of the students will be here all the way through till this time next year. And others will be leaving either in December or June, or even some that are here for just a 2-month stay. So they'll be gone by the end of March. So a real range of length. I see some people are doing our survey, which is excellent. I see others haven't maybe started yet, Jody. So let's hope that we can get everybody to give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
It really helps us a lot as we're talking through. And right now there's kind of it's almost 50-50 of folks who have hosted before and folks who are looking at this as a first time. So right now,
Nice.
the have hosted is winning, but
it's neck and neck.
Yeah, that's right. And regarding have they hosted Japanese students before, about 40% of you so far have hosted Japanese students and others have not. And that's why maybe this is an interesting conversation to be having. And then the third question is, how many of you are hosting an international student coming end of January? About 65% of you on here are already of the mindset that you will be hosting a student coming into Mli Homestay at the end of the month, which is great. And another good chunk of folks that we can help build a good story for to hopefully consider signing up tonight. So neat mix. I'm aware of everybody's time. It's almost 5 after, so I think we're going to get going here really soon. I got partway through introducing myself, and then Jody and I got chatting about our weather. But again, my name is Cheryl Lee, and I'm happy to be joined tonight by Jody Anderson. Jody, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jody. I am the community engagement and social media specialist for MLI. So it's me if you got the invitation from MLI to join here, or if you saw a post on Facebook, I'm the person behind all of those things. And I've been at MLI for almost 4 months, I guess. And it's been a great experience. So much going on all at once. It's a busy, busy place, but it's great. And a big part of my background that helps me understand the thing is that when my husband and I first moved to Barrie, we did host a student from China for almost 2 years. She became like a part of our family. So it was a great experience, and it gave me a little bit of intel into what it's all about.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks. And so yeah, when you see posts on Facebook or Instagram, we do really appreciate it when you like them or follow them, and even better when you share them, so that they're now it's that whole thing, like that old herbal essence shampoo commercial that so on and so on and so on until people that Jody and I or people in each of the communities that are the local coordinators just wouldn't know each other. So we're getting to a broader group of people by the work that Jody does. And thank you to each of you for signing up tonight. This is being recorded, and we're going to get going here now. We have a good number of folks that are online here. Some of you have completed the survey, and others, I think, are still on the fence of whether you're going to do it. I am going to wrap up the poll now and just share the results with everyone, so that you can get a feeling yourself of the mix of people that are here in this meeting today. So you can see that we had of the first question, have you hosted an international student before? Yes, 65% of you have hosted, and 35% of you are new to hosting. So that's exactly amazing. It makes for a really neat mix of folks. And secondly, how many of you have hosted a Japanese student before? And about 40% of you have hosted a Japanese student, and 60% it might be your first time, or maybe you're still just curious about that and what it does it mean to look at this particular subset of students that come into MLI Homestay's programs. And then thirdly, are you hosting an international student arriving the end of January? And many of you are, 70% of you are hosting a student in January. So humongous thank you to each of you in Ontario that is stepping up to host. And for those of you who are not yet sure if you're going to be hosting, I hope that by the time we get to 8 o'clock, you're like, sign me up, this is good. And whether it's for right now, whether you want to just consider getting signed up to be ready in the future, if we need someone to step in as a backup host for even just a short time while someone's away, or whether you're really more thinking that this fits in the summer or fall, this is a great time to be chatting. So I'm going to stop sharing this now and just, did you guys see this? Did it share? I'm hoping that it did. It's interesting to see sort of where we all are at. So to get on to the main purpose of tonight, it's a chance to just take a minute to talk specifically about the students that come into MLI Homestay from Japan. And before I go to the next slide, I just will share that the roots of our company are very much linked to our friendship with Japan. When my business partners first started MLI almost 27 years ago in Huntsville, Ontario, it was because of some work that we had done in our prior lives, where we realized that any people coming into Ontario were primarily going to Toronto, Ottawa, or Niagara Falls, and were primarily adults or seniors, and how amazing it would be if we could welcome some young people into Ontario and help them see how we really live in small town Canada, and to have a chance to, you know, play shinny in the streets, a pickup hockey game, you know, go for a swim in a lake rather than in a pool in a lane, to feel the dew on the grass as you're lying there and looking up at the stars and actually seeing that the stars have a different configuration in the sky in Huntsville, Ontario than they would in rural Japan. And for kids to just get a chance to see in person how we live here in Canada and how warm and welcoming as a community we are to them as young people, and how that kind of, as island people coming from Japan, helps them start to build those friendships that will lead to being better global citizens. And it was a really simple idea in the beginning to come in summer for a couple of weeks of our beautiful summer. And it's evolved over time that we have Japanese students coming year round and coming not just to Huntsville, but in fact throughout Ontario and now across Canada. And it's pretty cool. And we're not only supporting Japanese students, but often our company is known for that because the roots do go deep. And we have many, many long-term friendships with schools overseas in Japan, with some of the agents, and we've seen young people grow up to become adults in this work and now having their own kids and talking about when their kids are teens to be able to now also come back and go to school in Canada. And it's been a lot of fun. So without further ado, I'm going to shift on from here. The first question that you may ask is, well, who is Mli Homestay? If you're new to working with us or to being involved in looking at the idea of homestay, it's a labor of love. It's a friendship. It's a caring connection between a family and a young person from overseas. And you can imagine, as the natural parent in Japan who is signing off on sending their child overseas, they look to us to become the receivers of their child and to take on that care and attention to helping them thrive and helping them figure out life in another land. And for many, this will be their first time away from home, their first time out of Japan, and certainly their first time out of Japan on their own. And it's a big undertaking that they've been planning for probably since grade 8, maybe even prior to that they've been thinking about coming. And so our role as Mli Homestay is to work in each of the communities where students are coming with the school boards and with the local community of families to find good homestays for each of the students and to do the best we can to support you as families and support the students in their quest for learning here in Canada. So yeah, I don't know, is that a good kickoff, Jody? Do you think?
Yeah, it was perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we put together a bit of an agenda, and certainly we do invite folks to put questions in the Q&A. Some of you have already done a great job of sharing where you're from. We love for you, if you haven't done that yet, to continue to put that in the chat box so we get a feeling of where in Ontario is home. And that just gives us a better sense of the breadth of the community that we're talking to. But our plan is to talk up with a little bit first about some tips for hosting a Japanese student. And as all of us know, any of these things that we're going to say are generalizations. You know, every person is their own person. And to say all Canadians love, you know, maple syrup, well, most of us really do, but it's not doesn't mean we all do. So please understand that we say this from a place of some experience, but of also just trying to highlight some key points that might help you in your support of a student and or in your decision about would this be a good fit for our family. And then just what are those subtle differences? And then how would Mli Homestay provide me support and the student support if I was to be a host? And what are those expectations, both that the student brings to homestay and that MLI Homestay is expecting of us as hosts. And we will take a few minutes to talk about COVID and what we're doing right now in prep for this group of students arriving and in support of the students that are on the ground now. And then wrap it up with how could you step in and how could you help us now if you're already planning to host to be ready for the students coming at the end of January, or maybe to spread the word to bring on a few more folks. So that's the basic plan. The first point here is that, you know, I think there are some specific, unique Japanese student similarities that we wanted to share. One is that they absolutely have been looking forward to the host family part of coming to Canada. That is something that our staff in Japan, we have an office in Tokyo with 2 staff there and a third person who works remotely. They talk a lot about the life outside of the school day and how much that is a fun part of a student coming to Canada, and how much we as families here in Canada are kind of looking forward to the hours outside of the school day to share with them in our life, to share with them in the things that make living in Barrie or living in Brockville or living in Owen Sound really our choice, and something we hope that they at the end leave going, yeah, if I was to come back here and live, I want to be in this spot. So that's something I really notice about the Japanese kids. They come with that really excited part about the family life. They're also shy, and that is probably partly because perhaps they've had less hours to practice their English, or perhaps a quieter culture generally. And so they do need a little extra encouragement to give it a try. And I know I find that when in my work, really my whole life work has been connected to working with folks from Japan. If I try and say a few words in Japanese, and I get them kind of wonky, or I don't make the right emphasis on the right syllable, I think it helps. They actually have a good giggle and then are ready to give it another try. And they see that it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake, and that we learn by making mistakes. So that little encouragement goes a long way. And I guess just that, you know, when a Japanese child goes through her elementary school life and then into her high school life, her parents are making so many of her decisions each day for her. And that they may have also made this decision for her, that she's going to be getting this chance to study abroad. And you will be part as a host of helping her start to make some of her own choices. But she's maybe not been used to having option A and option B. So sometimes better not to give her 12 choices and just say, okay, tonight we could have pasta or we could have pizza. And from then make a choice, rather than what do you feel like having for dinner? Or, you know, on Saturday, I'm going to go grocery shopping. You're welcome to come. I'm going to go at 10 a.m. Would you like to join me? And if you don't want to come, that's okay too. So just like an A-B choice model tends to be clear, specific, and helps them kind of come to a point of decision. If it's not really that they have a choice, then it's better not to give choice. If you actually really would like them to come with you to church on Sunday this first week that they're there, then just say, we will be going to church on Sunday at 10. And I would like you to be, you know, let's have our breakfast at 9 and let's be ready to go at 9:45. And maybe even just writing those things down. I guess just more little tips. I find most young people, this would be true, and probably all of us as adults too. We really thrive on positive feedback. There's very few of us that do better when criticized. But as a culture, this group is especially best when shown what they did right. So let them know. Say, you know, that was so great that you helped me clear the table. Rather than, you were supposed to clear the table. And I mean, I'm speaking to folks that you're adults, many of you are parents, I'm sure, and already have learned that with your own families. But this group of kids, I find, is especially responsive to that kind of positive feedback and encouragement. And also something I've learned because of my own, I'm a loud person. I've learned that I need to be a little quieter when I talk with them. And that when I shout, like maybe to my dog, that's frightening to them. They're not used to hearing women in the home or men in a home raise their voice. So even though it's because I just saw my dog try to rip apart my brand new slipper, and I'm cross about that, that surprises some of these young people. So keep that in mind as you go forward. And I also found just that they love to be getting a high five, and it's just a simple gesture goes a long way. And it just to go, yeah, that was awesome. Like, thanks for clearing off the front steps, like for thinking to sweep the snow off the front steps, like high five, just that little gesture. And then that becomes a reinforced system that you use throughout your time together. And I mean, they love it. And you'll see often that the kids will go, Cheryl, that was a great dinner, high five. And I'm like, oh, okay, cute. And I'm like, I guess they kind of got that now. I could use a few high fives on my dinner. I feel like I'm getting rather bored with what I'm cooking. So anyway, so those are some tips, Jody. There's lots, and it's just a matter of how deep we go into this. But from an academics perspective, I would let you all know that they're very bright kids, but that they will have had less hours of English study and English speaking and listening than reading and writing. So they'll be lower on the oral and higher on the reading comprehension. So if you ever get in an awkward spot, write it down, because pretty much for sure they'll know what you mean if you write it down, but they might not have had enough chance to practice chatting. And they really perform well against our Canadian teens in math and sciences. They're just a little further along at this age in their volume of content for math and science. And they tend to really take their homework super serious. So, you know, if the teacher says that their assignment's due by Friday, they'll have their assignment in on Friday. And so they may say to you right after dinner that they need to go study. And that's probably because they are used to studying for 4 or 5 hours a day and doing homework. And they may not really actually have that much homework in the start, but they'll just have that as their practice to go do that. And so if you see that they're kind of not actually doing homework, it's probably because they finished it. And maybe you want to invite them to come and watch a show on TV together, or bake cookies, or just have a chat about what the weekend options might be, or about your day at work and how you're feeling about any topic. So yeah, that's the academics. As far as extracurricular activities, in almost all cases, high school students belong to a single club, and they do that club all year round, literally 12 months of the year, in a very intense way, whether that's a sports club or an acting club or a flower decorating, arranging club. That becomes their specialty. And one of the things they love about coming to us is that they can be in 4 or 5 of these, and they might be just for a season, or they might be able to do 2 clubs after school, 1 lunch hour club, and try out to be on the ping pong or badminton team at the school. And they love that. So you might see that to be a surprise to them as they start to realize that that's really an option, that you could play basketball now, and then you can be on the track and field team, and then maybe there's a soccer team, all within the season between now and end of June. So talk about that stuff with them, because I think they'll love understanding how that works. From a social perspective, as I mentioned, they can be a little bit shy and a little bit cautious, but I invite you to just play with that and learn a few words yourself from them, and let them be your teacher, as well as that you're automatically their teacher. And with your own family, whether you have kids living at home with you, or your own grandkids or neighbors, start building language together, of the Japanese language as well as the English language. That's kind of a fun game, and you'd be amazed how quickly you have 100 words added to your own Japanese vocabulary. They might not have made their own meals before. In most cases, there's a parent at home full time, and it's almost always the mama. So she likely would have made breakfasts and lunches. And in many of the schools in Japan, lunch is actually served as a hot meal as part of the tuition. So they don't bring a lunch to school. That's provided at school. So they have, a tray and go through a cafeteria lineup to get their lunch meal. So they will be new to the idea of bringing a bag lunch, and for sure new to the idea of actually building that either the night before or in the morning before going to school. So you might need to kind of show them how to do that, and what's okay for a weekday breakfast, and if you want them to be boiling an egg on your stove, how to do that, or maybe they're toast people. Today I got the most absolutely adorablest little piece of info from a host family, that the student had been with her already for 2 months, and he said, "Would it be ever okay if we could have toast?" And she said, "Yeah." He had no idea that there was a toaster on the counter, and that's where toast was made, and how easy it was.
Probably gonna eat a lot of toast now.
Yeah. There'll be every peanut butter jam combo.
Yeah. Someone asked a question if Japanese students like pets.
Yes, they love them, but many of them won't have ever had their own, because they're city people. And lots of apartment buildings don't allow for pets. Some of them are afraid, more out of not having an experience, or having maybe had one not so good experience, maybe visiting their grandmas in a more rural part of Japan. But they like the idea of it. They just don't have a lot of direct experience with walking a dog, or having a cat that's romping around the house, or for sure not other more interesting pets like, I don't know, lizards and birds,
reptiles,
stuff, or horses, or that's just so cool, but for sure would be not common. So definitely that's part of our small town Canada treat, is the fact that they might get to know some dogs and cats or other pets. And for sure, like in our life of COVID, I think all of us who didn't have a pet,
everyone has a pet now.
Yeah. And if you haven't told your local coordinator that you now have a pet, and you do, please do share, because we do, homes that don't have pets are kind of almost like precious commodities, because there are actually students that have real allergies to cats or dogs, or both. And so we might have matched you with a student that did have a pet allergy, because at the time that you filled out your profile, there was no pet, and now you've added a puppy. So please let us know so we can be sure to double check that. And just to wrap up this part of these tips, I guess, I really find it's one thing to write it down, but what I really have learned from my own experience of hosting Japanese kids is is ask them to then explain to you what it was that we were writing down. Just get them to try to use their voice to, even if they just end up rereading it back, it's the start of that process of shifting it from being a reader to being a speaker. And in their class of 40 plus kids studying English for 1 to 3 hours a week in Japan, you can imagine as a teacher, it's pretty hard to let them each have their voice. So in your home and in their life at school here in Ontario, they'll get a chance to really build that. For those of you who are going to go for it, these are just some really simple little suggestions in that first couple of days. We really suggest that you keep the food super simple so that you can kind of see, okay, this is the broccoli, this is the chicken, this is the meat, this is the potatoes, that kind of thing, just so folks know what they're getting into. And I would say in general, they won't be so used to being invited to put their own food on their plate. So if you're used to sort of serving up everyone, just start with a small bit and then have them see that it's really okay to have seconds if that is how it works in your house. Or if everybody, serves from a common, lasagna pan in the middle of the table, just you might need to help them learn how to do that in the beginning. And please do have a look on their application about the things that they like to eat and perhaps that they think they are maybe even allergic to, and talk about that, because sometimes my experience is the word allergy is often linked to maybe I've never had this before and I'm nervous about it, and not necessarily that they're actually allergic. And so having a conversation in that first 48 hours is really helpful, because if you have a list of 7 things that you see they're allergic to, you're obviously not going to want to be adding those into the menu. But if you learn that really they're not allergic to them, they just don't like avocado, that's good to know. Yeah, and I mean, I think these other points are pretty obvious, Jody. We really do hope that folks will become curious about how the students' life was in Japan, right?
Yeah, you want to include them. Yeah, you want to include them in your family and make it an open two-way engagement, right?
I mean, I think we all want to share about our life, but we really learn so much from learning about theirs. And do they have a grandma?
Yeah.
Do they have sisters and brothers? Do they live in an apartment or in a house? And how many hours are they on the train to get to school? Or what is a typical weekend look like in their family? And does their mom and dad each have a job outside of the home or not? And I think that's really interesting, and they love to learn as their language acquisition evolves, more about your family story, like what how long have you lived in Barrie, and where did your grandma live, and how did this become home for you? I mean, they know we're a land of immigrants, but they aren't from that, so understanding that, like, it's part of what they've studied in high school. But like when you can say, well, my grandma lived in Saskatchewan and they lived, here, and then they chose to move to Ontario and come to the city. And now we've chosen to leave the city and be in a smaller community. That's interesting to folks.
Mm-hmm.
As far as some subtle things, just to keep in mind, we use certain phrases, we don't even realize we're saying them, and they're not really translatable into another language. And one of them that really with Japan, I really learned, I say help yourself a lot, because that's just the kind of kitchen our family has. We don't have as much of a structure around who cooks and who cleans, and we all kind of chip in and join in depending on what's going on in our house that evening. And I realized that nobody was actually helping themselves, that nobody ever was taking an apple out of the drawer or ever getting a granola bar out of the cupboard, or even really understanding that it was okay to turn on the pot and make a cup of tea. And so I found I had to actually kind of literally physically do almost like a tour of my kitchen and say, you know, you're absolutely welcome to any of these things. And I will say, please help yourself. And that means it's okay. And just kind of almost do charades through that. So it sounds a bit simple, but you can imagine coming to live in someone's home and you have no idea what any of the rules are, or how they operate, what their regular rhythms are. And then someone says that and they're like, okay, what does that really mean? You know, what does it really mean? Same as make yourself at
they're
home.
Google
Right?
translating it, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. They don't know what make yourself at home means. That's like, what does that mean? And I think what we mean is like, come on and join me in the living room and we're going to watch a movie. Or, you know, you don't need to have your fancy coat on. You can come out on Saturday morning in your PJs, or, you know, whatever those little things are that we say to make people feel comfy might not automatically make someone feel comfy because they don't know how to do it. Because maybe in their home, you wouldn't do that. Maybe you never leave your bedroom without being fully dressed. Or, you know, maybe you never come downstairs with your toothbrush in your mouth. Or wouldn't sit as a family and play a board game except for on board game night. And, you know, so yeah. And sarcasm, a subtle thing, but again, when you're learning a language, humor and sarcasm are really hard to pick up. And we take, in general, things literally when we're learning a language. And I would say that's true for the Japanese kids too. Like, you know, we really can't assume that they'll know that was meant to be funny. So just I don't know, just a thing to think about.
That's a good point. Sarcasm doesn't translate culturally very well.
And when you're sitting watching a movie and you realize that your student is laughing, like there's a moment for a high five, because they got it.
Yeah.
I remember many times being in France and Spain and Mexico at different chapters of my life and just wanting to be able to laugh when everyone was laughing and watching everyone laughing and not having a clue why that was funny.
And you don't want to laugh when you're not supposed to.
No. So yeah.
So we have a few questions. One person asked if the students come with any fun money so they can go to the show or other activities like that.
Absolutely, they do. And it will be different from house to house. A lot of these young people, many parts of their extended family put money together to pay for this opportunity for the student to be away from home for a year or a semester. So they probably have a very specific allowance they've been given, and they might get it drip fed through the year rather than getting $1,000 at the front end that they are to sort of manage through the year. And I mean, I would say that in general, it is funny when you go to another land, and we call it funny money or play money, but it feels like that because it's the currency's new.
Yeah.
The value for things is different. An orange, a beautiful orange in our grocery store is what, 60 cents or something. It might be $3 to them in Japan, in Tokyo. And it might never be a thing that they would be allowed to just have their own whole orange. So be aware that they are probably taking on a new level of responsibility for managing their funds, and they may need some encouragement to spend a bit or to hold back and not go so deep on spending.
Don't send it all in 1 month if it's the last of the year. Yeah. Someone asked, so just to let everyone know, there's been lots of questions if this will be emailed to people. So I can email those that registered this webinar tomorrow, because there's a lot of really valuable information in here. So some people had to leave early, but someone asked if you will be notified if you're chosen to host. And yes, there's a long process, but we'll get to that, I guess, unless you want to talk about that now.
Well, no, but just that if you signed up and you actually completed your profile and you haven't heard yet, It's always okay to reach back out to your local coordinator. And if you're not sure who that is, you can even just reply to this invite or on Facebook, and we'll get you linked up right away with your local coordinator. If somehow, maybe through the holidays, there's been, we thought we sent you something and we didn't. You can imagine we've been in a bit of a yo-yo game ourselves of sort of verifying. First of all,
I'm just putting a website and the email in the chat box too, just so
great.
You can email that, or if you filled out an application, it would have been at mlihomestay.ca, and you should have received a response right away. And then it would have been forwarded to the local coordinator and they would be in touch with you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think at this point, I'm going to keep going, Jody, and we'll, do our best to answer questions as we get to the next section. Is that okay?
Yeah, we're going to answer more questions in a bit. Just if everyone wants to keep typing them in there, and if they're not answered, we'll get to them after the next section.
Yeah, for sure. And for people to know that the basic theory is that we'll talk for the balance of this hour and then have another period for questions at the end of that. So if you can hang in there past 8, I'm willing to stay on for another 15 minutes or so to continue to answer questions until we've drained the pot as much as we can. And for sure, we do want to also hook you up with the local coordinator if you have more specific questions about your family or about your community that you don't feel have been answered by this, because of course we're speaking to a large group of people across a province. So of course, everybody's needs are a little bit different. This is just a simple image to help you realize that if you haven't felt it yet as a host, or if you're new to hosting with MLI Homestay, the student is in the middle of our student care and support network, but there's all these adults working as a team, and you as a host family here in Canada work in partnership with the school board, who's also there to help the kids, as well as our local coordinators and people like Jody and I that are working from our home offices, but from our head offices to be on the Canada side of that support. And also just to mention that the students themselves will continue to get support from their natural parents. And that's kind of normal. They've been parented for 16 years by them, and that's not going to be severed when they come to Canada. In fact, the kids who survive have at least some understanding that their parents are still there for them and are believing in them and are encouraging them. But they may not have a regular dialogue with their parents in Japan the way you might have seen if you've hosted someone from Brazil or from Germany or from Mexico. In general, the students who come through the school programs that MLI Homestay supports in Japan, there is more of a old-fashioned postcard style of connection. Like you're here now, make your community here, make your family here, make your friends here, and we'll all be there for you back in Japan when you come home. So you might see that, and that might feel unusual in this time of everybody texting and chatting all day long, that you might be surprised of how much the students are kind of encouraged to disengage from that daily contact. I mean, partly it's a time zone thing, but it's also just a belief that the kids will be well cared for by you and as a host family and the school community, and to let them give it a go. And where they need help, we'll certainly step in. That we do work with both schools and agents overseas in Japan. And we do have a really strong team of what we call academic year program coordinators, who are all Japanese people who are assigned to each of the students when they arrive. So they become a regular point of contact for them as they're trying to navigate things and maybe struggling with how to explain it in English, or it was a little different course than they were thinking they were going to take and wondering what their options are. They can always go to the school and speak to their counselor, guidance staff person, but they also do have this resource on our team. So it's a bit of a Canada-Japan holding hands group of adults with the students in the middle. These responsibilities, I think for most of you are already familiar. We are looking for hosts to really be patient with the students' English abilities and to operate in an English speaking home. We do require that students have their own bedroom and that it has a desk and a comfy bed and a dresser, or a place where they can put things away, get them out of their great big suitcases. And I do really encourage you to sort of by week 2, say, okay, why don't we finish emptying this suitcase and let's put the suitcase away, and maybe it goes into your storage in another part of your house, just to help them realize, yep, I'm really here. This is really my home. I'm not on a holiday. I'm part of this. Eh, Jody?
Yeah, that's a big deal to not see your suitcase anymore. Then you're really in.
Yeah. And it's a commitment by them, but it's also a commitment by us. Like we're gonna make, we're in this family unit together. If you are hosting a Japanese student and you're also looking at hosting another student, that's totally okay. It would need to be 2 girls or 2 boys as opposed to 1 of each. We do always hope that the students will be of 2 different language roots. So perhaps a Japanese student with a German student, or a Japanese student with a student from perhaps Spain or Mexico or Brazil. So yeah, and we definitely do, require you to help them navigate getting 3 healthy meals a day. It doesn't mean you're serving them breakfast. Some of you might really enjoy doing that in the beginning, and I welcome you to do that. But I also do hope that they will in time discover that independence and feel glad to have learned how to make, a peanut butter sandwich to put in their lunch, and to find an apple and a granola bar, and that they refill their water bottle, and that they take ownership of their lunch kit or lunch bag, and that they bring back the stuff that the end of school day that needs to be washed, and just kind of make that pattern happen. Dinners, we really do hope you'll eat them together and that it'll be a place for conversation. The bathroom etiquette is on here because for those of you who've had an opportunity to host before, you've learned that every child's bathroom is not the same as yours. And even in our own houses, we might have 3 different kinds of tub, sink, shower arrangements. So you can imagine how different it is from theirs in their home in an apartment in Tokyo. A lot of the bathrooms in Japan have like a single drain point in the middle of the floor. And so water can go willy-nilly because it's ultimately all going to flow to this common point. Whereas for us, that would be really worrisome. We want the shower curtain inside the tub, or we have sliding doors, or whatever your arrangement is. So please, in that first day, actually demonstrate how the hot water works, how the cold water works, what needs to be done to operate, how you flush the toilet, what goes into the toilet, what doesn't go into the toilet. Those simple things make people feel more at ease in the bathroom. And for school days, are they taking a school bus, or are they actually moving about on public transit? And that's obviously really different depending on where you are in Ontario and how the distance is from your home to the school they'll be attending. Students are used to being on transit a big chunk of their life, like 2+ hours a day. And from a really young age, I was just saying to Jody, like littles, 5 and 6 years old, get on a train all by their little selves with their little backpack on, and off they go on the train. They leave the house and then come back 10 hours later. But they just need to know where to go and how to do it. So your help with that is great.
Someone asked a question specific to this about who handles getting them added to a bus route if it's with the school bus.
That's with your local coordinator and with their AYP coordinator. Together, we do that school by school and student by student. And that stuff is already starting to happen for those who have already got a match. For others, it will probably bleed into the first week of February. There may be some scrambly first weeks of second semester, and we apologize for that. But everybody's a little bit extra strained, as you can imagine, in the transportation department. There's been reduced number of kids on some of the buses. There's been, I think there's some students are being placed a little further away from their home school. And so there's maybe more complex bus plans school by school. But ask your LC, ask your local coordinator, what do I need to do? How do I help navigate that? Is there a number I need to call to double check that Yuki is actually registered and that he or she is on, like, to be there at 7:55 or 8:18 or 6:45 or what is it? You know, as far as key messages, I would just really encourage you to think about what are some really basic things that are really important to you as a family that happen every day or once a week or don't generally happen in your home that you want to emphasize. That might be something simple like on Sundays we go to church, or on Friday nights everybody eats leftovers and we make our own dinner, or when I go for a walk at night, I lock the door, or I do laundry on Saturdays and I'd like you to help me with your laundry by getting it into this basket by Friday night so we can together do laundry. Or I want you to learn to do your own laundry and I'm going to help you on this first weekend to teach you. Those little things really take away the fears that kids have about how they're going to cope with the really basics of living. And they love knowing that stuff. So, yeah.
Someone asked a question about host responsibilities and if it includes toiletries like toothpaste and shampoo.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Basic soap and towels and sheets and pillowcases, absolutely. But they'll come with a pretty good first round of those things. Their favorites probably. And then as time goes along, you may want to just check in and, you know, how are you doing? Do you need to go do a run with me to the drugstore? Or I'm going to be going shopping on Saturday to get food and we can do a stop and make sure you get some new shampoo or that kind of thing. I mean, each family's a little different about that. In my home, the shampoo, there's always some in the shower, but if my teenage daughter who likes to try every kind of shampoo has a different one she wants, then maybe she has to purchase that one. But there's always some shampoo, there's always some soap. Toothpaste, same. I mean, right now in the time of COVID, I think we're all trying to be a little bit more separate about some of those things. So even just, where is the toothbrush kept? Does it come back into the bedroom in your family, or does it stay in a spot in the bathroom that becomes their primary bathroom? Talking about that really helps. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's a reference to the emergency line, Jody. Just to say to everybody that we have a really active team of staff ready to answer calls. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we do ask that if you find yourself in a real emergency, that you do reach out so that we can be there to support you as a family. And if needed, we'll bring your local coordinator in to also help. But for sure, if you haven't figured out who your local coordinator is yet, we would love to make sure that by the end of tonight, you have our website and you can reach out and ask that question. Or you can even send Jody a private chat message and we'll do our best even tonight to get back to you who the person is. But you can always call go to our website of www.mlihomestay.ca, and there's an option to make a call. And from that, you can say, you know, this is the thing I'm kind of needing, and then we'll do our best to get that person to follow up with you. In many communities, there's one person that is in the local coordinator, but we do have communities that are where there is a group of people that actually work together, and they split the schools up in the community and do kind of like a regional piece. So yeah, so I'm super aware of the time, so I'm going to pop to the next slide. This one I think is pretty self-explanatory, and we've kind of touched on it in other parts of our conversation, Jody. But just basically that we really know that kids do come here for a full experience. So, although they have an academic mindset, they do know that their number one job as Japanese students in Canada is to work on their English, and to do that by joining into stuff, by joining into life in your home, by joining into sports and clubs, volunteering, getting to meet your extended family as a host family. And, you know, we know that the more conversation they have, the more they reinforce the vocabulary they already have, and just naturally start acquiring new links in the language. And it's like, it just, the light bulbs start going on. And it's pretty amazing to watch a Japanese student from the start of their visit with you to the time they leave. You really can see a really real learning curve and language acquisition with Japanese kids, because they're so keen to learn it. They're often you know, quick to try, and then kind of have a little flat bit, and then whammo, it all of a sudden just opens up. So,
Just clicks.
yeah, it's neat. A change of topic. Is that okay to change it up to COVID now? Is there anything with your inbox that
there is one question about how students receive money from their parents. So I don't know if we want to just quickly mention that before we move on.
Yeah, sure. It varies a little bit. Many of them will come with a credit card. Some of them will come and actually go and set up a bank account and have an actual transaction linked to Royal Bank or to your local credit union or whatever makes sense. But some of them will come with an actual amount of money that they're to deposit into a bank and get that set up. And so your help with that would be amazing. And just ask them, like, what is it that your plan is for your spending money, and then they'll be able to answer that. That's one of their things they're trained to talk about and expect to do in that first week of February. Anything else sitting in there that you want to bring up, or should we keep going?
No, I don't think so. There was one person asked if, well, actually, I'll talk about this after. I think we're good.
Okay, cool. So we've been very fortunate through this time of COVID to have, you know, not thousands of kids, but many hundreds of students arrive over the last 2 years. And with each wave of students coming, the rules have changed about what the rules to enter Canada are, what the specific rules are in Ontario for being able to go to school here. And the rules in their home countries have changed quite a bit too, about whether they were allowed to come or not. But with Japan specifically, and generally speaking for Mli Homestay, we're happy to share with you that we haven't had any students bring COVID into Canada. And so they go through quite a living small chunk before they leave home. And then now they do a COVID test 3 days prior to departing, and that result must come back negative. This group of students will all have to be double vaccinated to be able to come to Canada. And in addition to that, we are now saying for each of the students, when they come, they'll do a 2-night stay in a Toronto hotel with our staff team before they come to you in your community in Ontario. So regardless of where you are, all of the students that are coming end of January will come through Toronto, will stop, will have a minimum of 2 sleeps with us at the hotel, will get their negative COVID test result, and then we'll either get back on a plane to fly to North Bay or Sudbury or Thunder Bay or Windsor or Ottawa, or they will have a land transfer to the rest of Ontario. I guess when I say Ottawa, I include within that the area of Catholic East and Upper Canada, that Brockville, Perth, Carleton Place, Cornwall zone. They'll fly to Ottawa as well from Toronto. So that's something we're doing as a company that's above and beyond what is expected of us by the federal government. We really feel that just getting them all together and doing that little double check and making sure the tests have all come back negative before they link up with families is really important. And just for those of you who maybe yourselves have traveled into Canada recently or have family or friends that have, right now we're in a funny window where there was an announcement that it would be 100% of
Do they come
people.
by shuttle at that point?
Pardon me? Sorry, I think I just had a little glitch.
That's okay. I think no, there was a glitch here. We're all good.
Okay. Sorry guys, I didn't realize that Jody, you'd frozen there for a
I
minute.
think it's me. My mom is on a Zoom call with all of her siblings. And so we have a double Zoom call tonight.
Bonus.
Someone asked, like once students are on their way, will they come probably by a shuttle to the host family?
It depends on where it is. We'll have some students, we'll meet some of them in parking lots at schools, and others might actually be delivered right to your house, depending on how many others are moving towards that community. Others, you might even meet them at the airport. It will depend on your particular community and day and time, and you will receive information from us about that. And you'd think we would have all of that already, but we're still waiting on a lot of flight information. So it's more delayed than normal because, as you can imagine, the world's aircraft are less frequent and more changing than ever in time. So we're a bit feeling like we're putting a lot of pressure on our schools in Japan to give us the answers. But we did just get a bunch of new info today about the days kids are arriving. So you'll start to see that way. Just to clarify, if a student or a friend or anybody you know might have come into Canada in the recent 4 weeks and maybe didn't get tested, it's currently random, and it's the majority of people are being tested. We are told that by the end of January to expect it to be 100% and to be mandatory. And so that's what we're going with. But if someone is not tested at the airport with a PCR test, they might be given a kit and we might be doing it with them at the Toronto hotel, or they might not get a kit at all. And in that case, we'll be doing an antigen test on day 1 and day 3. So we will for sure still have them go into the quarantine and still make sure that everyone has had that negative test result before they head to families. And so yeah, that's kind of our promise to you as hosts. And just to summarize, so all of the students will have to have had that negative COVID test 3 days before they fly, and they will all be fully vaccinated. And we will have all students from Japan that are coming to Ontario do a 2-night quarantine in a hotel in Toronto before they come to homestay. And as a result of that, we are asking that all hosts for new students be fully vaccinated, all the adults and teens in the home. So anybody 12 and over that's had access now for a while to the vaccination, it is mandatory in our organization. And we do know that the little people age 5 to 11 are just now getting access to vaccinations, and the rate in Ontario is going up daily for the single dose and more for the double, but that is not one of our requirements, nor are we tracking the boosters, but we are just generally hoping folks will follow through and do the full protocol so that you can go to a restaurant, you can go watch the kids in the gym if they're playing a sport, you can go take them to the curling rink and see what it's like to curl in Canada, one of our original sports, and generally include them in your family life. So yeah, before we go to the final bit of questions, Jody, I think we did pretty well. We're at 4 minutes after.
We did. We had one question of someone that asked, and I should have asked you this earlier, but we kind of got off track, but of a typical host family, because someone asked, because there may be a single person or it's just two people in a home, but if they could still host a student in their home, even though they don't have
Yeah,
kids there.
absolutely. There's really no ideal family in makeup. It's more about your desire to be a host. If you're keen to host, you like the idea of supporting a young person, you understand that they're not a tenant, or it's not a room and board arrangement. They're really joining into your life. And that you are able to make time to support them and care for them, as you could imagine their parents are hoping they will be cared for from overseas. That's the key. So whether it's a person my age on my own, or with my husband and my kids are grown up and moved on, whether I'm a grandma, whether I'm a young couple and don't have children in my home, or I'm a Jody with a 3-generation family with grandma and parents and an elementary school child, all of those are perfect. Being a home of teens is not a criteria to host a teen. In fact, they love being in homes with seniors, and they love being in homes with little people. I think they sometimes feel more like they can take a risk of practicing their English and less judged than maybe by someone else that's 15 and they're trying to be cool, which is silly, but it's kind of true. It's a thing, right? Yeah.
And someone asked if it's okay if both adults in the home work full time.
Yeah, totally. We expect that. And in fact, it's more just around, if both of you are working the night shift, that wouldn't really work. Or even if you're both working the afternoon shift and we're going to be gone from 3 till midnight, that wouldn't really work. But for sure, it's normal that these people are not to be babysat. They're able and they're ready to have some independence, and can even help chop some carrots and get things going with dinner some nights when you could use a little bit.
Yeah, be a big help.
For sure.
So most of the students are arriving the end of January.
Correct.
And someone asked if students are also arriving in March. There are probably a few. It just depends on the area, right?
There is a group of students who will arrive the very end of March, beginning of April. And those are also Japanese students. And for those of you who maybe are hosting a student now that arrived last April, we had a large group of students come then that couldn't come at the end of January, and so did come in April, and now are completing their cycle at the middle to end of March. And so, yes, there will be another crop of young people coming at that time. But I think about 110 students will be arriving then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is there usually communication between the students and the host family prior to them arriving, or is that
that's something just for folks to know. With the Japanese kids, they don't yet have your profiles. If you've already signed up, that hasn't been shared yet with the student, so they haven't seen who their host family is yet. Most of them have a meeting either this Saturday the 15th or next Saturday the 22nd, when their teachers will meet with them and their parents and go kind of do the final orientation. And a lot of times our staff are present for that, and they'll then receive their host profile. And they are often a little more shy about emailing you or sending you a message. So please wait for them to do that first. And if they haven't done it when they get to the hotel, you can be sure we're going to for sure encourage them to do it that night to let you know they landed safely.
Yeah. Well, someone actually commented in the chat. They said if our students at the hotel, maybe we could have a FaceTime or something with the student, because they're all alone in the room. So that would be amazing.
That would be super fun.
Yeah.
Definitely talk about making that happen. And for those of you who are kind of on the fence about this, you can see on this particular slide that we have up, we still need families. We need Ontario families right now, throughout the Simcoe area, the Ottawa area, Windsor, the whole, what I call Upper Canada or Catholic East area, from just east of Ottawa and south down along that piece in the Lanark County piece, and
Rockville and Cornwall and
that whole area, and also in North Bay and Owen Sound, and you know, even up into Thunder Bay. So we're grateful for families to still say yes for a Japanese student. And we have the website up here. If you want to take a photo of that, and you can, when you log into that, you can either call us or you can start filling out your application. You don't have to go very far, and then it will be sent to the local coordinator, and then they'll call you to set up a meeting. And after you've had that phone meeting, if it still feels right, then they'll arrange to have a home visit. And it might be a virtual visit right now because of caution around COVID. So you might be asked to do a house tour with your phone or your tablet or whatever. And all adults in the home are required to have a criminal record check. So we offer the first 2 checks for the 2 primary parents at a free of charge to you. We pay for those. And then if there's a third adult, one of your kids is maybe home that's an adult, or your own parents or auntie, that would be an additional cost to you. And it's not a large cost. It's like $32, and it lasts for 3 years. So it's a pretty minor cost in the scheme of things, but an important one. So yeah, so that's kind of, that's our sort of best fast run through. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but maybe there's still a few more questions.
Still a few questions. Are there enough homestays available for the interested students and vice versa?
I believe there are, but I need you to show me.
We still need host families.
Yeah,
homestays.
We do. We're looking for a few more families, as I said. So please, if you know somebody that you think might find this to be fun, I invite you to give them a call tonight and say, hey, they do really need more hosts, and we'll work together with you to make sure that it fits into their lifestyle, or if you yourself are kind of not super sure. Sometimes a chat with a local coordinator will then you can ask the direct personal questions you want to ask. And I know they're all ready to receive your calls.
And do the host families ever speak with the family back in Japan? So yeah, are there ever conversations between both families?
But I will share with you that there, in general, isn't as much of that as one might imagine because of language barriers. So there might be some waving and charades that go on, and often the student becomes a bit of the bridge, right? Language bridge, yeah. So it's pretty fun to see how that goes along. And again, lots of these students are encouraged to write letters home as opposed to calling home. So you might find that they're working on a letter to grandma or to mom. And those are pretty precious things to receive. You can imagine on the Japan side after saying goodbye. So yeah.
What is the duration of the stay? Any specific months the students come to Canada? So
yeah. So I mean, the normal big times kids arrive are end of August, or now end of January. Those are the 2 biggest intakes. But for Japan, there is also this April intake. And then we do, in a non-COVID year, we have groups of kids who come in summer. And those are usually students who are here for a week to 3 weeks. And some go to camp and some do homestay. And that's a pretty fun part. But that's kind of in a quiet mode right now. So it's the long-term students, and the shortest that the long-term, that sounds like a strange way of saying it, but the shortest that a student coming to study and go to regular high school would come for is 2 months. And we do have about 50 students coming into Ontario at the end of January that are here for just till the end of March, until they start their new school year on April 1st.
Someone asked if we're going to be discussing the compensation for families.
Yeah, we can talk about that for sure. So families are paid monthly, twice per month, and you're paid in advance of in fact the time. So for example, if a student was arriving on February 1st, you would be paid for the first half of the month prior to the 1st, And then every 2 weeks or every half month, it's like an advance on the period. And the fees paid are to cover your out-of-pocket expenses. They're not considered an income, so they're not taxable. So folks are very much able to think of it like a net income, which is pretty nice. So there's no tax taken off on that money. And as far as what each family is paid, whether you're one student or two students, the best is to talk to your local coordinator and work out, depending on how long they're there, what that will be for your community. And that's a totally fair question to ask. But in general, folks are paid semi-monthly, I think is what we say, like halfway through the month and at the end of the month. And so, yeah, that's the norm.
There was a question about if schools don't reopen for in-person attendance, will that affect students still coming?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're in a funny day today, because last night the word kind of hit the media that students will be in school on Monday. And so that's encouraging, and looks like the plan. I think we're still waiting for that to be made official. However, at the school board level, we are hearing many saying, yes, that is going to happen, and they're just waiting for it to be formalized, right? So I think that's the mood. For those of you who heard that I'm in BC, yesterday was our first day back at in-person classes, and of course, there's going to be little glitches here and there, but I think people were happy that students were back at school and getting to do their normal teen stuff of meeting up with their classmates and being in in-person learning. There's most of us, I think, are happy for the return to the classroom.
Oh, someone asked, for tax purposes, would hosting a student be considered a rental agreement?
No.
I heard there's quite a bit of calculation if a conversion part of my principal residence to rental.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Not. There are some stratas where people need to declare that they have an extra permanent resident in their home, but that you would have in your agreement that you could have a look for and just lay out, but that they're not a tenant. In fact, we really are not looking for folks who are looking for tenants. We're looking for folks who are looking to expand their family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked how my experience of hosting a Chinese student was, and it was great. I mean, it was definitely the language barrier was great, and we used Google Translate a lot. It was interesting navigating around food, but it was overall really good. Lots of idiosyncrasies, lots of Skype. She was using Skype a lot to talk to her family. And she was from a very well-to-do family, so she liked to shop a lot, which was always eye-opening to see how much money she spent on things.
And I think that will be different for hosting a Japanese student. I think in general, they're on a smaller budget. It's really that the family pulls together the resources. They've actually been paying into it in some cases since their children entered elementary school to offset this year's cost in a monthly amount of $30 or whatever that is. So it's kind of like they're banking this money, and now it's finally the day when they get to actually start to reap the benefit and see their children get here.
Yeah. I think that we've answered most of the questions. There's lots of questions.
Yeah, it's good.
If we apply today and assume everything is in the process that goes well, what would be the earliest and latest date that the first student will arrive? And that's the end of January to early February.
Right. We have students arriving into Ontario as early as the 25th of January. So that's literally 2 weeks today. And the last kids will arrive. There's 4 boards in Ontario that are not starting second semester until February 7th. And so, oh darn, London Catholic, Ottawa Catholic, I think Sudbury Catholic. I could probably find the 4, but anyway, there's 4 boards that are starting later. You probably know yourself if you're in one of those communities that has a later second semester start. And so in those cases, the kids might be coming as early as the 3rd or 4th, And just keep in mind that wherever they're coming, the Trillium, Sudbury, Ottawa, and London are 4 communities where they're starting a week later. So they might arrive and have a week of just chilling before school starts, or they might come after the 1st and have just a couple of days.
And there's one more question. Someone asked if students would be eligible for a booster shot since they'll be double vaccinated when they get here.
Yeah, so right now our teams are not open to being boosted yet. But as soon as the under 18 group becomes available for lining up, I'm pretty sure all these kids will do the same. Be part, and we'll certainly be sharing that information, Jody, once we get that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they want to join in and follow suit and do as teens are doing. Yeah.
So yeah, someone asked how soon they would know if their application is accepted, and it's pretty quick at this point. I think as long as if you go online tonight and fill out the application, tomorrow morning the local coordinator will have your information and they'll probably be acting on it quite quickly.
I think so. I think it would be odd to get to Saturday and not have had an email or a call. We do ask, there have been people who have been putting in an application and then maybe don't recognize the phone number and so aren't seeing the number. So check your junk mail in case we come through it as junk. We don't want to be in your junk. And if a stranger calls, it could be the local coordinator she'll be your friend pretty soon if she's a stranger now. I'm
just going to type sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just putting the email address and the website in the chat again. So if you've applied and you haven't heard anything or you're wondering what's going on, just email that email and we'll look into it and get back to you or find out what's going on.
Yeah, right on. And Jody, you just helped last week with explaining to folks how to get their QR codes for teens so that they can live to the rules of the time. I guess we'll send that out again in early February to students.
Yeah.
But someone just asked, how do we do that? And it is a 2 or 3 step process right now.
It's not easy, like anything with the government. You have to go onto your specific health unit for your region. So for me, I go onto the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit. And if you navigate to the COVID section, there's always a big Q&A. There's lots of questions and you just have to find the spot because there's an area to register your vaccinations if you receive them out of country or out of province. And there's an option for if you're not a Canadian resident. So you have to do that first, and then you have to call the health unit, and because you'll get an email back, and then you have to call the health unit and you have to get a COVID ID number, which pretty much replaces your health card. And once you have that, and you have the proof that your vaccination has been submitted, you can obtain a QR code.
Yeah, so
it sounded so easy when I spoke to them, but I don't.
I think again, that's a weekend, Sunday afternoon. Okay, let's look at this, and
you have to put your patient's hat on and just follow the steps. But it's the same process that's listed on every health unit, so they're all talking to each other. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Susan, you've just asked about the age of the students. If we're hosting a student that's a high school age student, then the other student should also be high school aged. If you're hosting an adult, then they should be both adults. So hopefully that answers your question. And I think people have been incredible to keep asking Jody, but I know it's getting late and probably some dogs need one more walk wrap up the night out in that cold. But this has been really good. Thank you very much for giving up your evening to do this together, Jody. It's been super fun.
Thank you. You did a great job. And thanks to everyone for participating.
Absolutely. And you will have other questions. We know that, and we know you each came onto this with a different amount of knowledge about either hosting at all or hosting with Mli Homestay or perhaps with just curiosity about hosting Japanese kids. And as I said right at the beginning, we were making some generalizations. Of course, there will be a range of kids from the shy to the very outgoing, and from those who are more natural language, like acquisition folk, to those that struggle. There'll be more athletic kids and others who say they want to skate, but maybe are terrified of actually skating on a lake. So part of the beauty of this is, as we all know, is when we meet new people, is just to take them as they are and help them grow from where they arrive, and enjoy being part of that process together. And we thank you very, very much for being on board to host. And we do hope that you will spread the word, and we can close this thing down, because in literally, we got 14 sleeps till we need to finish this up. So thank you, all of you, very, very much. Have a great night.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye. Night, night, Jody.